What if I told you there was a player so good that every player in their role would do everything in their power to come even half as close to their skill level? It'd probably seem even crazier if I told you this player wasn't a solo laner, or even a jungler for that matter. That's right, the player I'm talking about in this video is Keria, and I'm going to be breaking down his argument for greatest support of all time, as well as his influence on the game as a whole. Ruminsook, better known by his IGN Keria, began his career on a Korean amateur team playing for them for 3 months before signing to LCK team King Zone Dragon X, now known as DRX, as their trainee. Even before he set foot on the LCK stage, multiple players were quoted as saying that he is insanely talented, most notable of which, Deft, saying he is one of the best supports in Korea. This was back when you were able to duo queue in high elo, and Deft and Keria would often stream themselves duoing, and honestly, I'm starting to see why Riot removed duo queue in Masters Plus. Anyways, Keria would burst onto the scene in 2020 and right off the bat surpassed all expectations. He had back-to-back All-Pro finishes in his rookie year, making the first team All-Pro in his debut split. They finished 3rd in the spring playoffs, falling to his future team T1, and in summer they were the LCK runner-ups, only falling to Dom1 in the finals, and given the fact that Dom won Worlds that year, you can't really blame them considering they were playing with 2 rookies in Keria and Piosik, and Doran and Chovy were relatively new to their careers themselves. At Worlds that year, history would repeat itself and DRX would be knocked out of the tournament by Dom1 in the quarterfinals. But hey, if you're Keria, finishing 3rd in spring, 2nd in summer, and quarterfinals at Worlds along with 2 All-Pros to your name is a pretty crazy start to a career if you ask me. The following year, Keria sent a wave through the league community by signing with Korean powerhouse T1. T1 was coming off a disappointing finish in 2019, and after failing to make Worlds in 2020 they decided to make some changes. T1 would call up their substitute AD carry Gumayushi, and he would split time with Teddy, who at the time was a top 3 AD in the world. Come Worlds though, Gumayushi would cement himself as a starter, and what would happen next would change the game of League of Legends for years to come. Most of the time, when you go to Worlds, the support is the last player that people are looking at, but Keria made sure that everyone paid attention. This man was a walking highlight reel, hitting hook after hook on Thresh, playing Shen support against EDG, and in World Semis against Dom1 pulled out Zillion and went 1-0 and 19, but T1 would go on to lose that series. It seemed like this man could play literally anything and look like the best support in the world on it. This man was so mind-breakingly mechanically gifted that he earned himself the nickname Genius Monster, which Riot Games even bought into when they made a documentary on him in May of 2022 titled Keria, the Genius Monster. I'm going to leave a link to it in the description down below, so you should definitely check it out if you have the time. Now coming into 2022, if you're T1, you'd take last year and build on it. Keria showed incredible promise individually and established himself a cut above his counterparts. But why stop at support champs when there's 4 other roles to pick champions from? See, everyone knows just how proficient Keria was and still is on champions such as Thresh, Rakan, and Pyke, but in 2022 is when we started to see Keria unleashed, playing not only the standard meta champs, but also picking champs such as Gragas, Zac, Wukong, and Rumble. If you were a coach trying to prep your team for an upcoming match against T1, there literally wasn't anything you could do. If you play meta, Keria can just flip the matchup on any champion he wants. If you pick a niche pick, then he isn't afraid to pull out some unorthodox, never seen before champion in the support role and make all 5 of your players look like donkeys. And that was only in spring. In summer he also played Yasuo, Camille, Sejuani, and even Lee Sin. Like, this man is not only the best support in the world, but he could probably put half of the LCK junglers and solo laners out of a job if he really wanted to. But that's not like our precious prince now, is it? A lot of the aforementioned picks were viable during a Senna meta, but T1 was the only team showing a complete ability to use Senna as a flex in draft, to the extent that it did. Keria was so good that T1 decided to make the best AD carry in the world at the time, Gumayushi, pick a low resource, long range champ with sustain, and if that doesn't speak volumes to just how much faith T1 had in Keria to carry those games, see what I did there? I don't know what will. Now after being only 2 wins away from World Finals the previous year, T1 would step it up the following year, beating regional rivals Gen G in the finals and go on to finish 2nd at MSI, losing to RNG in the finals in what was probably the most controversial contested tournament winner in League of Legends history. Early on in the tournament, Keria played champs like Pyke, Rumble, and Wukong into the wildcard teams, probably in order to gauge how viable those champs would be against a tougher opponent. Following the heartbreaking loss in MSI finals, T1 would build on their strong start to the year, finishing 2nd to only Gen G in summer. Keria picked up his very first LCK MVP and finally got his flowers for the generational talent that he was, and T1 will go on to represent Korea as a 2nd seed at the 2022 World Championship. T1 looked unstoppable at Worlds in 2022. They dropped a singular game to Fnatic, got their revenge from MSI by beating the hell out of RNG 3-0 and only dropped one game in their 3-1 series victory over JDG en route to the finals. Keria was an instrumental part in T1's dominance, outlaning virtually every bot lane in the world and finding flank after flank. But it was the finals where Keria really put the whole world on watch. See, even though T1 ended up losing 3-2 to DRX after being up 2-1 after the first 3 games, it didn't really feel like the best player in that series won that night. Keria not only played the meta picks like Renata and Karma, which were both high presence at the time, but even pulled out Lux out of seemingly nowhere, and his performance was enough to bring a 6'1", 180-pound man to tears. Yes, I'm actually 6'1", stop saying I'm 5'10". And y'all thought he was done, huh? Nope. This year, Keria got the MVP in Spring Split, which is virtually unheard of by a support in any league, much less the LCK. On top of back-to-back MVPs, a first-team All-Pro selection in Spring, he narrowly got beat out by Life for the 3rd team spot in Summer, and honestly, after T1's collapse and Faker's absence, it honestly makes sense why. But let's just say that out of every other support who finished in All-Pro over him, they're all watching Worlds from the comfort of their couch, whereas he'll be playing in his 2nd Grand Finals in a row this weekend. This level of consistency isn't unheard of. I mean, players like Wolf and Beryl were both at the top of the game for so long, and even in their primes, the gaps between them and the 2nd best support were a matchup or a singular pocket pick at best, like Wolf Zyra or Misfortune. I think the only comparable support in history would probably be Mata, but that was back when they had flip phones instead of iPhones, so I don't think it really counts. With Keria, he is an X factor in every single game he plays. If he doesn't like the meta, he will literally just bend it to whatever champ he thinks is best in the scenario at any given point. We are literally seeing this phenomenon happen at this year's World Championship. Coming into Worlds, champions like Alistar, Rakan, Rel were all super high priority, oftentimes getting B1'd or straight up banned in the first phase of draft. Despite this, during T1 series against LNG, the meta shifted back to range supports with double AD comps such as Caitlyn support. And who's responsible for this? That's right, our precious New Jeans loving king himself. So not only has this man had more All-Pro selections than years he's played in the LCK, not only is he a back-to-back Worlds finalist, not only does he have 2 MVPs to his name in 2022 and 2023, but he also has good music taste. Like, what can't he do? Honestly, as I'm writing this script, I've exceeded 1,500 words, and this is probably longer than any piece of writing I've produced in university in my first 2.5 years. I'm going to go ahead and leave it off with this. When T1 takes a rift against Weibo this weekend, don't be surprised if you see a certain support player pick up Finals MVP. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, remember to leave a like and comment your thoughts down below. Feel free to connect with me on Twitter at LOLMehere, and don't forget to check out my other videos and articles. Peace.